The market of chains. The sky above the black market was always dark, not because it was night but because the market was hidden deep under the surface of a forgotten moon. This was a place where no laws existed. Here, living beings were sold, like tools, pets, or worse, like toys for the rich and cruel. The market smelled of oil, smoke, and fear. Strange alien traders shouted prices. Cages lined the walls, big ones, small ones, even glass boxes that showed off the rarest beings. Some prisoners cried, some sat in silence, eyes empty, some had already given up hope. In the far corner of the market, chained to the cold metal floor, sat a girl. She was not like the others. Her skin glowed softly like moonlight. Her hair was white with a hint of silver, and her eyes were the color of a fading star, dim, but not dead. She wore a metal collar around her neck. It blinked red and hummed quietly. The traders called her Lot 312. They laughed and said she was too quiet to entertain and too dangerous to serve. But she wasn't dangerous. She was broken. Every time someone walked past, she looked up, silently begging for help. But no one stopped. No one cared. She had been here too long. Her voice was gone. Her hope was dying. Until today. A human man stepped into the market. He wore a black coat, dusty boots, and had a scar over one eyebrow. His name was Jaren, a warrior veteran who had seen too much pain and was now just trying to survive. He didn't come to the market for slaves or pets. He only came for fuel and spare parts. But something pulled him toward the cages. As he walked past the prisoners, most didn't even look up. But one pair of eyes did. Soft, silver eyes. He stopped. The girl was watching him. Not like the others watched people with fear or hate, but with something else. Something deeper. Help me. The words didn't come from her mouth, but Jaren heard them. In his mind, in his heart. Somehow she was reaching out to him. A nearby trader noticed. Looking for something rare, human, the alien said with a sharp grin. This one? Pretty face, but broken. Can't speak. Wasted money. What's that on her neck? Jaren asked, eyes locked on the collar. Old tech, slave control unit. Bites her if she misbehaves. We lost the remote years ago. It stays on. Jaren felt his jaw tighten. How much? The trader laughed. You serious? She's useless. How much? Jaren asked again. The alien shrugged. 10,000 credits, too much. Way too much. But Jaren didn't care. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small chip. His last savings. Money he needed to repair his ship. Money he had been saving for months. He dropped it into the trader's hand. The alien's eyes widened. You're a fool, he said, handing over a rusty key. Jaren didn't answer. He walked to the cage, opened it slowly, and stepped inside. The girl flinched. It's okay, he said softly. I'm not here to hurt you. He knelt beside her and gently touched the chain. It was thick, heavy, made for beasts, not people. He unlocked it. The chain fell to the ground with a loud clang. She looked at him, eyes wide. Her lips trembled. No words came. You're free, he whispered. But she didn't move. He reached out a hand. Come on, let's get out of here. Very slowly, like a wild animal learning to trust, she reached for his hand. Their fingers touched, and something happened. A warm light moved through her skin and into his, just for a second. Not painful, not strong, just warm. Jaren helped her stand. She wobbled but stayed up. He pulled his coat off and wrapped it around her. Can you walk? He asked. She nodded weakly. As they walked out of the cage, other prisoners watched in silence. No one had ever seen someone choose to save one of them before. The traders laughed as they passed. Good luck with that one, human, one called out. She'll be dead before sunrise. Jaren ignored them. He didn't know why he had done it. Maybe it was her eyes. Maybe it was that silent voice in his mind. Maybe it was something else. But as they stepped into the cold air of the surface, Jaren knew one thing. She wasn't just another slave. And this was just the beginning. The bid nobody expected. The cold wind of the surface moon whispered around them as Jaren led the strange girl away from the black market. Her legs shook and her hands clung to the inside of his coat like a frightened child, but her eyes never left his face. She hadn't spoken, not one word. Still, Jaren felt her silence, loud and heavy. They didn't get far. A deep, mechanical voice echoed behind them. "Halt. You are not authorized to leave." Jaren turned slowly. 3 market guards stood in front of the gate. Their armor was thick and their rifles hummed with energy. One of them pointed at the girl. That one was not meant to be sold. Jaren's hand moved to his belt where a small pistol hung. "I paid for her. Fair price." The largest guard snorted. "She's not a product. She's a secret." Jaren narrowed his eyes. "Then you shouldn't have put her in a cage." Without warning, the girl stepped in front of him. Her head was low, but her body was stiff like she was protecting him. The guards laughed. "Look at that. The little pet thinks she's brave." Then, everything changed. The girl's collar suddenly blinked bright red. A strange humming noise grew louder and louder. Her knees buckled and she screamed, not from fear but from pain. Jaren grabbed her before she hit the ground. Smoke rose from the collar. Her skin burned under it. "Turn it off," Jaren yelled. The guards only laughed louder. "She's programmed to obey," one said. "If she resists, she suffers. Then she belongs to no one," Jaren growled. In one motion, he pulled his pistol and fired. One guard fell. The other 2 dove for cover as Jaren lifted the girl into his arms and ran. She was barely conscious. The collar kept buzzing, making her shake like lightning was crawling over her spine. He ducked into an alley and slammed his back against the wall, panting. His heart pounded. She trembled in his arms, her fingers twitching with silent pain. "I'm getting that thing off you," he whispered. "No matter what." Suddenly, a low robotic voice came from the collar itself. "Escape detected. Self-destruct initiated." Jaren froze. Self-destruct? The girl's eyes opened wide. She weakly grabbed his wrist. Her lips moved. Just one word, barely a whisper. "Run." Jaren didn't think twice. He ran. Through dark tunnels, past blinking signs, around greasy vendors who shouted at him to stop. He pushed past all of them, holding her close. Then he saw it. A flickering neon sign. Black Mechanic. No questions asked. He kicked the door open. Inside, a huge insect-like alien turned slowly from a glowing workbench. Its many arms clicked together in surprise. "Emergency?" the mechanic asked. "The collar," Jaren said, laying her on the table. "It's going to kill her. Shut it down." The mechanic moved fast. Tools whirred to life. Clamps held her still. "This tech is forbidden," the alien muttered. "Military grade. Illegal. Pain-locked and heart-synced. Can you remove it?" The mechanic paused. "Yes, but she might not live through it." "She will," Jaren said, holding her hand. "She has to." The room filled with sparks. Smoke hissed from the collar. Her body jerked, but she never screamed. Just stared at Jaren, trusting him even through the pain. 30 seconds to detonation, the collar warned. The mechanic hissed. Almost there. 20 seconds. The tools spun faster. Jaren gripped her hand tighter. "Stay with me." 10. A flash of blue light filled the room. Then silence. The collar clattered to the ground. Broken. No explosion. No death. Just silence. The girl's body relaxed. Her chest rose and fell. She was alive. The mechanic wiped oil from his hands. "You're lucky. That tech, it wasn't just a collar. It was a prison for the mind." Jaren looked down at her. "What do you mean?" The alien nodded. "Whoever she really is, she was locked away. That thing didn't just control her body. It suppressed her memories, her identity, maybe even her power." Jaren turned to the girl again. Her eyes slowly opened. No more fear. No more pain. Only light. A faint glow came from her skin now, soft and warm, like starlight. She sat up slowly, looked at Jaren, and spoke her first full sentence. "You heard me when no one else did." Jaren blinked. "You can talk?" She nodded. "Because of you." He smiled a little. "You're full of surprises." She looked at the broken collar, then back at him. "No," she whispered, "you are." Escape from the shadows. The broken collar lay in pieces on the mechanic's floor. It still sizzled slightly, like a dead snake that hadn't accepted its own end. Alari, yes, that was her name now as she remembered it, sat up with slow grace. Her silver hair flowed around her shoulders and her skin still glowed faintly in the dim light of the shop. But her eyes, they were no longer dull, they were alive. Jaren stood nearby, watching her carefully. He didn't understand what had changed, only that something inside her had awakened. The mechanic, still wiping tools, looked uneasy. "You need to leave," he said, glancing at the door. "Now." "Why?" Jaren asked. "That collar wasn't just tech," the mechanic replied. "It was a tracker. Someone important put that thing on her. Now that it's broken, someone out there knows." Jaren turned to Alari. "Can you walk?" She stood up slowly, steady this time. "Yes. I remember how." Jaren smiled at her. "Then let's get out of here." The mechanic didn't charge them. He simply said, "Run far, hide well." They left through a back alley. The moon's dark air felt heavier now. Something was watching. Something cold. Alari stopped walking. "What is it?" Jaren asked. She closed her eyes. "There are 6 men, waiting at the next junction. 2 with guns. 1, not human." "How do you know that?" She opened her eyes slowly. "I don't know how. But I do." Jaren didn't ask more. He only whispered, "Then we take another way." But as they turned to backtrack, a loud clang echoed behind them. Too late. The shadows moved, and out stepped a tall figure wrapped in black armor. His helmet had no eyes, only a red slit across the front that glowed faintly. Behind him came others, mercenaries, bounty hunters, hired thugs. The armored figure raised one hand. "Return the asset," his voice boomed, mechanical and cold. Jaren stepped in front of Alari. "She's not an asset. She's a person. She was property of the High Order. She carries classified potential. Her freedom is not your right." Alari's voice was calm. "You cannot chain me again." The armored figure pointed. "Engage." 2 mercenaries raised plasma rifles. Jaren pulled his gun, but Alari stepped forward, her hand raised. "No." She closed her eyes. And something shifted in the air. A low hum filled the alley. Dust lifted from the ground. Tiny stones floated. The red light from the soldiers' rifles flickered. Alari's eyes snapped open, glowing like twin stars. "I remember now." With a sudden wave of her hand, the ground beneath the attackers exploded upward in a flash of white-blue energy. A blast of light knocked 3 men off their feet. Sparks danced in the air like lightning trapped in smoke. The leader stood firm, but even he stepped back. Jaren grabbed her hand. "Whatever that was, let's do it after we run." She nodded, quickly. "Agreed." They turned and ran again, through narrow alleys, over cracked metal bridges, past slums filled with strange faces. The moon trembled behind them with distant blasts. They found shelter in a hollow cargo ship long abandoned at the spaceport. Jaren sat her down and checked her wounds, though strangely, there were none. Alari healed fast, too fast for any normal species. He looked at her seriously. "You're not just any alien girl, are you?" She looked away. "I don't know what I am yet, but I remember pieces." "Like what?" She looked at her glowing hand. "There was a war. I was part of it. Not as a soldier, but as a key. A living weapon. They said I was made to change the outcome. But I ran. I didn't want to hurt people, so they locked me away." Jaren stared. "You were made?" She nodded slowly. "Born and built. Both. He sighed and leaned back. I just wanted a quiet job. Maybe fix my ship, maybe take a few transport runs. Now I'm hiding in a junkyard with a glowing girl who can make people fly. Alari smiled for the first time. Then leave me, I won't blame you. Jaren looked her straight in the eyes. No. She blinked. Why not? Because the first time I saw you, he said, you looked at me like I was the only one left who could hear you. And I did. I'm not walking away now. Silence stretched between them. Then Alari placed her hand on his. I don't remember everything, but I know this. You're not just protecting me anymore, you've awakened me. Outside, far above, ships were arriving. Red lights flashed across the black sky. Alari looked up and whispered, They've found me again. Jaren stood. Then, we leave before they land. She looked at him, something burning in her eyes. No, she said. This time I don't run. This time, I fight. The bond beyond chains. Inside the broken cargo ship, silence wrapped around them like a blanket. But it didn't last long. Outside, ships landed one by one. Their engines rumbled like angry thunder. Lights scanned the area. Soldiers moved in shadows. And above them all hovered the red-eyed man in black armor, the hunter. But inside the rusted shell, Jaren and Alari sat close, hidden behind crates of forgotten supplies. Alari stared at her hands, her silver hair glowing faintly in the darkness. I feel different, she whispered. How? Jaren asked. Before, I was nothing. A shadow. I could not feel the stars or the energy in my blood. Now it flows again. Now, I can remember little things. Music, laughter, pain, all mine. Jaren nodded. That collar didn't just trap your body, it caged your soul. She looked up, her eyes shining with something more than light. Grief. You freed me, she said. But I don't know who I am without the chains. Jaren sat beside her and opened a small kit from his pack. Inside were a few cloth wraps, a metal lighter, a small photo of Earth's sunset, and an old necklace. He held it out. My sister gave this to me before she disappeared. Said it meant anchor in an old Earth language. Alari touched it gently. Anchor? He nodded. Something that keeps you steady when the world spins too fast. She closed her fingers around. And let me give you something too. From beneath the collar's scar, she reached to her chest and pulled out a thin, glowing thread. It was alive, flickering with pale blue light. She tied it around his wrist. What is it? He asked. A bond, she whispered. Not control, not magic, just connection. The moment it touched his skin, warmth spread through Jaren's body. Not painful, but comforting, like he belonged to something bigger. He didn't understand it, but he trusted it. Alari leaned back and said, softly, the stars taught my people that nothing real can be broken. Not light, not memory, not trust. He stared at her. You're not just a weapon, Alari. She nodded. I know. I was made to be one. But now, I can choose. They didn't have long. A metallic voice echoed across the port. Surrender. The target or be destroyed. Jaren peered through a crack in the hull. They're getting closer. Alari stood. I'm not afraid. He raised an eyebrow. You sure? She turned to face him fully. I was afraid in that cage. I was afraid when I forgot my name. But now, with you, I remember who I want to be. He smirked. You want to be a glowing space goddess? She giggled, light and pure, a sound so sweet it made Jaren's heart flutter. No, she said. I want to be someone who saves others. Like you did. Then her smile faded. But if I fight them, I may lose control. I've never used this power freely before. What happens if you do? I don't know. I could burn everything. Jaren stepped forward and placed his hand on her shoulder. Then I'll stay close. If you fall, I'll catch you. Alari took a deep breath and nodded. Then let's end this. They stepped out of the ship. The soldiers turned. Rifles rose. The hunter's eyes glowed red. Jaren raised both hands. Before you shoot, I just want to say something. The hunter tilted his head. Speak. Jaren grinned. You picked the wrong girl to chain. Alari stepped forward and the air around her shifted. Energy crackled in her fingertips. The ground beneath her feet began to hum. Lights flickered across the soldiers' visors. One soldier shouted, She's powering up. Hold your fire, the hunter ordered. But it was too late. Alari raised her hand, and the bond on Jaren's wrist lit up. Their connection surged, and from her palm, a burst of silver-blue light exploded outward like a wave of stars. The soldiers were lifted off their feet. Gravity bent around her. Machines froze. Their rifles sparked and failed. But not a single innocent soul was touched. Her power was no longer wild. It was focused. Balanced. Jaren stood by her side, shielded by the very light she had once feared. The hunter, now face to face with her, drew a long blade from his back. It pulsed with black energy. You were made for war, he said. Return to your purpose. Alari's voice was calm. No, I was made for hope. She raised both hands, and the stars came alive. A beam of pure light struck the blade, cracking it in half. The hunter was thrown back, armor breaking, systems sparking. He hit the ground and didn't rise. The silence after the blast was deep and still. Alari lowered her hands, breathing hard. She stumbled, but Jaren caught her. Told you I'd catch you, he said softly. She smiled weakly. I felt it. Our bond. It held me steady. He held her close. Then we're not done yet. Above them, the ships retreated. The soldiers vanished into the sky like frightened insects. And on the empty port floor under the light of stars long forgotten, stood a girl who once cried in chains, and the human who answered her call. Together. Alive. Free. The awakening. The moon was quiet now. The hunter was gone, his army scattered. Alari stood still in the middle of the broken port, her hands faintly glowing, her breath shaky. Around her, the metal had melted. The ground cracked beneath her feet, but Jaren was safe, untouched, standing close. It was over, for now. But inside Alari, something had started to stir. Something ancient. Something not yet fully awake. She looked at her hands and whispered, That wasn't all of it. Jaren stepped closer. You didn't lose control. I didn't, she said, but I didn't guide it either. It moved, like it knew the enemy. Like instinct? She nodded. Or memory. They found a quiet place to hide again, an abandoned orbital station hanging like a dead star above the moon. Jaren's stolen ship barely held together as they docked. The place was empty, quiet, perfect for rest. Jaren gave her space. Alari sat cross-legged on the cold floor, staring out a broken window. She could see stars, bright, endless stars. Some she remembered, some remembered her. And in that silence, she began to remember everything. A vision struck her. She was not in her body anymore. She stood in a white lab, surrounded by glowing machines and tall aliens in silver robes. They were not kind. They spoke, her name like a number. They did not raise her. They designed her. One of them whispered, She will awaken when bonded with an emotional spark. Protect the code at all costs. Then pain, metal chains, a glowing collar, black bags over her head, cold rooms, no voices, no touch. Then, Jaren. She gasped as she came back, sweat on her skin, breath shaking. Jaren rushed to her side. What happened? She looked up, tears in her eyes. I know now why I was made, what I am. He knelt beside her. Tell me. She placed a hand over her heart. They built me from stolen DNA, collected from 26 species, warrior blood, royal minds, starbinders, all mixed. Why? To end a war they couldn't win. I was never born to be a child. I was grown to be a weapon. But they feared me. She looked at her hands, shaking. So they locked me away before I could awaken. Jaren said nothing. He reached out and gently took her hand. You are not a weapon, he said. I am, she whispered. But I don't want to. Then don't be, he said softly. You're free now. But what if they come again? What if I break? Then I'll stand with you, he said. Even if the whole galaxy runs, I won't. A soft light bloomed between their hands. No power surge, no weapon charge. Just warmth. Connection. The SAR bond pulsed once around Jaren's wrist, and then something new happened. Alari's eyes rolled back and her body rose into the air. Slowly, silently. Jaren leapt to catch her, but she floated, light as breath. Energy flowed through her veins, like liquid starlight. The room around them shimmered. Symbols appeared on the walls. Alien text that had never been there before. The station responded to her like it recognized her. Jaren stepped back. Alari? Her voice echoed, but not from her mouth. It came from everywhere. Secondary lock opened, code memory unsealed. Then, she landed softly like a feather. Jaren caught her as she stumbled forward. She looked up at him, eyes wide. I unlocked the next layer, she whispered. There are codes in my blood, maps, knowledge, whole systems I didn't know I carried. He blinked. Like coordinates? She nodded. To something hidden, something old. He smiled, though his voice was wary. That sounds like very important information. She grinned back. Which means they're definitely coming for me again. Then we better find whatever it is before they do. Later, as they sat beside the station's main window, Alari leaned her head on Jaren's shoulder. I was made to end a war, she said. But with you, I think I can start something else. Like what? He asked. She looked out at the stars. Peace. A real kind. Not forced, not built on power. One that comes from choosing to care. He smiled. Then we fight for that. A pause. She turned her head toward him. If I ever lose control again, promise me something. He looked into her glowing eyes. What? Don't run. Don't try to stop me. Just remind me who I really am. He nodded. Alari, the girl who cried in chains, and the one who rose to burn them. She closed her eyes and whispered, yes. And far across the stars, deep in a dark throne room, a tall figure turned from a glowing screen. She has awakened, the shadow said, and the human must now die. Her true form, the stars outside the station, shimmered like cold glass, silent and far. Inside, Alari stood at the center of the control room. Lines of glowing alien script floated in the air around her, symbols Jaren couldn't read, but she could. Her hands moved without thinking, her fingers dancing through the holograms. The old space station was responding to her. Coordinates locked, she said quietly. The map is complete now. Jaren leaned against the wall, watching her. Where does it lead? She turned, her silver eyes glowing softly. To where I was finished. Not born, finished. It's the lab where they completed me. Buried in the broken planet of Virexa Prime. Is it safe? No, she said. It's a graveyard. The lab destroyed itself after I escaped. But the last piece of me is still down there. Jaren frowned. Last piece? Alari looked at him, her voice soft but heavy. The final seal. They split me in two, my body and my true form. They feared what I'd become if both sides awakened. You mean, you're still not fully awake? She nodded. Not yet, but I can feel it pulling me. Jaren crossed his arms. If they locked that part of you away, they must have had a reason. They were afraid, she said, stepping closer to him. Afraid I'd stop obeying. Afraid I'd become more. Then their weapon, I want to see it, understand it, but I'm scared. He looked at her gently. You think you'll change? I already am, she whispered, but I don't know into what. Jaren took her hand, the glowing bond still wrapped around his wrist. Then let's face it together. The journey to Virexa Prime took only a few hours, but it felt like flying toward a storm. The planet was shattered. Great pieces of it floated like broken puzzle parts. The skies burned red. Lightning crawled through black clouds. It was a place no one returned from. Their ship landed on a jagged cliff above a glowing crater. Deep inside it, the lab waited, partially buried, half-crushed but still humming with old forbidden power. As they stepped onto the rocky surface, Alari stumbled. Are you okay? Jaren asked. She nodded weakly. It's pulling me harder now, like a voice calling home. They entered the lab. The doors creaked open with a groan like a dying breath. Inside, everything was cold and sterile. Metal walls, shattered glass, broken tubes, skeletons of machines and memories. Alari walked slowly, her fingers tracing the cracked walls. This is where I first opened my eyes, she said. But I wasn't born. I was activated. Jaren kept close behind her, his hand on his weapon. What are we looking for? She turned to a sealed chamber at the end of the hall. A giant pod stood there, humming faintly. Inside, floating in glowing liquid, was a copy of her. Jaren froze. What? That's the vessel, Alari said. The final half of me, the sealed form. They called it the Stellar Core. As she stepped near it, the lights in the room flared. Identity confirmed, a voice said. Full awakening protocol initiated. Jaren stepped forward. Wait, what does that mean? Alari looked at him, scared. Once I join with it, I won't just remember. I'll become what they built. All of it. Jaren shook his head. Don't do it unless you're sure. I'm not, she admitted. But I have to know who I truly am, or I'll always be half a shadow. He walked up and placed both hands on her shoulders. Then I'll stay with you. Even if the whole galaxy wants to take you back. Even if you forget me, I won't forget you. She smiled through a tear and stepped into the light. The lab pulsed. The pod cracked open. The energy inside rushed toward her like a flood. Alari floated, weightless, bathed in glowing winds. Her skin shimmered. Her bones lit up like starlight. Her heartbeat echoed like thunder in the sky. She cried out, but it wasn't pain, it was remembrance. From her spine, wings of pure energy unfolded, wide, glowing, alive. Her voice rose, not screaming, but singing in a strange, beautiful language that shook the walls. Jaren fell to his knees, shielding his eyes, and then silence. When he looked up, she was standing there, different, taller, glowing from the inside. Her hair now floated like silk in zero gravity. Her eyes, no longer just silver, they swirled with galaxies. Jaren slowly stood. Alari? She turned, and for a moment, didn't answer. Then she smiled. It's still me. He ran to her and hugged her. She hugged him back, stronger now, warmer, brighter. She whispered, They made me a weapon, but you made me human. Just then, alarms blared across the lab. Above the shattered sky, black ships appeared. Hundreds. The High Order had come. Jaren pulled back, eyes wide. Can you fight them? Alari stepped forward, her energy wings spreading wide. I don't need to fight them, she said. I need to end them. And with that, her body began to glow again. Not like a machine, like a star. The girl who chose the human. The sky above Virexa Prime had no sun, yet the world was glowing. Alari stood at the edge of the cliff outside the lab, her energy wings stretched wide, her hair floating behind her like silver flame. She looked no longer like a prisoner or even a girl. She looked like something ancient, and free. Above her, the black ships of the High Order circled like vultures. Hundreds of them. Their leaders had returned not with chains, but with an army. Inside one of the lead ships, a cold voice spoke through the planet's air. Subject Alari, final notice. You have been recalled. Step forward, submit to resealing. Alari didn't move. Jaren stood beside her, a simple man with a stolen blaster, dust on his boots and fear in his heart, but not for himself. He looked up at her. You don't have to do this. We can run. She smiled at him. Not a sad smile. A knowing one. I've been running my whole life, she said. From cages, from my power, from who I am, but not anymore. The voice above spoke again. Engaging orbital suppression, final warning. From the ships, weapons deployed, huge cannons, each glowing with planet-breaking energy. Jaren reached for her hand. You're strong. You could burn them all down. Ikoki. Could, she whispered. But if I destroy them the way they fear, I become the thing they built me to be. She looked at him. You gave me a choice. No one else ever did. He nodded. And what do you choose now? She looked back up at the sky. I choose not to be their monster. And with that, she rose into the air. The High Order fired. Light shot from the ships like arrows from a god's bow. The sky ripped open with sound, but none of it touched the surface. Alari raised her arms and her wings expanded into a massive shield of shimmering light. It spread like a dome over the broken planet. The blasts bent, twisted, then vanished. She wasn't attacking, she was protecting. A glowing storm formed around her, made of memory, light, and her deepest truth. She wasn't just made of war, she was made of will. Inside the lead ship, officers shouted, Her energy is rewriting our systems. Screens went black, engines shut down, the cannons melted, and in the center of it, all floating like a sun born from sorrow, Alari whispered a final word. Sleep, and the ships obeyed. One by one they powered down, not destroyed, not broken. Just quiet, no war, no death, only silence. Alari slowly descended, her light dimming, her wings folding. She dropped to her knees, exhausted, shaking. Jaren ran to her, catching her before she fell. I thought you'd be gone, he whispered. She looked up at him, breathless but smiling. I'm still here. Later, after the ships were gone and the winds returned to normal, they sat beside the crater in silence. Alari leaned on his shoulder. Her voice was soft. I could have killed them all, but I didn't. Because you're not what they made you, Jaren said. You're what you chose to become. She nodded. I've had so many names. Subject 7, Core Prototype, Weapon Class Alpha, but none of them were mine. He looked at her. What name do you choose? She thought for a moment, then smiled. Alari. Just Alari? The name I whispered in my cage? The one you heard? And me? He asked quietly. Where do I fit in now that you've saved the galaxy? She looked at him seriously. You're the reason I became more than what I was. You listened when no one else did. You stayed when even I would have run. Jaren chuckled. I guess I'm lucky you didn't blast me too. She smiled. No. I didn't choose to fight for a galaxy. I chose you. In the final image, high above a quiet world, two figures walk away from the ruins. One human, one no longer quite. Alien, no throne, no army, no chains, just two people side by side. The girl who had once cried out in a dark market, and the human who answered. Together, free. The end.